Billionaire ignored all the models and kissed the black girl in a wheelchair. His reason broke everyone's heart. The ballroom shimmered beneath 1,000 golden lights. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like constellations, and the air smelled of money, ambition, and champagne. The Everton Foundation Gala was the kind of event where billionaires came to be worshipped, and everyone else came to be seen. At the center of it all was Ethan Cole, the man of the night. 35 billionaire CEO, his empire built on innovation and quiet ruthlessness. Cameras followed his every move, flashes catching the sharp line of his jaw and the ease in his smile. To the world, he was perfection wrapped in a tuxedo. To the women in the room, he was a prize worth competing for. But while the glamorous crowd fluttered around him, models laughing too loud, investors shaking hands that meant nothing, Ethan's eyes weren't searching for beauty. They were searching for something real, and that's when he saw her. At the far edge of the ballroom, tucked away behind a table of silver platters and untouched desserts, sat Naomi Carter. She didn't belong to this world of glittering egos and shallow praise. Her dress was simple, silver satin that flowed elegantly around the frame of her wheelchair. Her dark skin glowed under the lights. Her curls framed a face that carried quiet confidence. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, and that alone made her impossible to ignore. While the others performed perfection, Naomi simply existed, graceful, poised, and profoundly human. Most of the guests didn't notice her. Some offered quick smiles, others polite pity before turning away. But Ethan's gaze lingered. There was something in her stillness that pulled at him, a strength disguised as silence. What the crowd didn't know, what even Naomi herself didn't know, was that 2 years earlier, Ethan Cole had been trapped in a mangled car, bleeding out on a rain-soaked highway, and the voice that had kept him awake, the voice that said, "Stay with me, you're going to make it," belonged to her. She had saved his life, and she'd lost her own way in the process. The same crash that nearly killed Ethan had left Naomi paralyzed. She'd been the first responder that night, the one who crawled through twisted metal to keep him breathing. She never knew who he was, and he never forgot who she had been. Months after the crash, Naomi had spent endless hours in rehabilitation, learning to move again, to rebuild her strength, and to live on her own terms. The pain was constant, but so was her will. Every exercise, every stumble, every quiet tear taught her one truth. Her life wasn't over. It was just different now, and that difference became her power. Now across this glittering ballroom, fate had placed them face to face, and Ethan knew this was his moment to make things right. The auction began, the gala's favorite spectacle. The host took the stage, grinning as he announced that tonight's main event would be a kiss with the city's most eligible billionaire. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Models called out teasing bids, actresses flashed perfect smiles, and cameras swiveled toward Ethan, expecting his trademark smirk. But instead, he stood completely still. And then, without a word, he walked down the steps from the stage. The laughter faltered. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The host stammered, unsure what was happening. Ethan didn't glance at anyone. He moved with quiet certainty, past the golden tables, past the expectant faces, until he stopped right in front of Naomi. Every eye in the room followed. Every phone began recording. The billionaire who could have chosen anyone now stood before the woman no one had even noticed. The silence in the room was suffocating. Naomi's eyes widened in confusion, her hands trembling slightly against the arms of her chair. Then, without hesitation, Ethan knelt. The room gasped. The CEO of a global empire, a man worshipped for his pride, lowering himself before a woman in a wheelchair. He took her hand gently and pressed a kiss against it. The sound of camera shutters was deafening. Every flash burned the moment into eternity. "This isn't charity," he said softly enough that only she could hear. "It's gratitude." Naomi froze, speechless. The crowd didn't know how to react. Some clapped awkwardly. Others exchanged confused glances. And somewhere in the corner, a gossip reporter whispered, "Oh, this is going viral tonight." Within hours, it did. By the next morning, Naomi's face was everywhere. Billionaire snubs supermodels to kiss wheelchair-bound woman? Who is she, and what's her connection to Ethan Cole? Act of love or publicity stunt? The internet devoured the story. Some called it romantic. Others mocked it as fake compassion. Naomi's social media exploded overnight. Strangers sending messages, reporters showing up at her apartment, old co-workers suddenly reaching out. Meanwhile, Ethan's PR team was in chaos. His board demanded an explanation. His stock dropped 2% overnight. His assistant warned, "This could ruin your reputation." He didn't care. But one of the older board members leaned forward, his voice low and cutting. "You think this is about bad press, Ethan? The Everton Foundation funds half our corporate projects. Don't cross them." Ethan met his gaze unflinching. Then they shouldn't have built it on lies. Because for him, this wasn't about headlines or reputation. It was about something deeper. Something that had been haunting him every day since the accident. He owed Naomi his life, but she didn't need pity. She needed justice for what had been taken from her and for the people who had turned her tragedy into gossip. Naomi, sitting in her small apartment watching the headlines scroll across the TV, didn't know whether to cry or laugh. The man who had kissed her hand in front of 500 people, the one the internet now worshipped or hated, was a stranger, or at least she thought he was, because she had no idea that the same man she once saved from the wreckage had just set in motion a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. Before we continue, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It truly helps us keep creating these powerful stories. Believe it or not, each one takes hours of writing, editing, and voice work to bring to life. Your support means the world. The next morning, the internet was on fire. Clips from the Gala replayed on every channel. The billionaire kneeling before the woman in the wheelchair. The hand kiss. The flash bulbs. The stunned silence that followed. It had become the story of the week. Some called it beautiful. Most called it suspicious. And like wildfire, the opinions turned cruel. Naomi Carter, who had spent most of her life invisible to the world, suddenly became the face of a scandal she didn't understand. Reporters waited outside her apartment. Strangers sent her hate mail. Meanwhile, Ethan faced the same storm from his own world, his board, investors, and old allies turning on him. Days turned into weeks, and Naomi stopped leaving her apartment. But one night, she opened her laptop and began to write. She wrote about pain, about being seen only when people could use her story, about how society loved to praise inspiration, but never equality. Her words poured out like confession and rebellion all at once. She didn't edit it. She didn't plan it. She just posted it. By morning, her blog had gone viral, not for scandal, but for truth. Across the city, Ethan read it in silence. Every angry, honest, hopeful word. And for the first time in years, he felt small. He realized his good intentions had reopened her wounds. For days, he replayed her words, realizing the woman he'd tried to honor had instead reminded him what true integrity looked like. He wanted to apologize, but words alone felt empty. So instead, he began to act. He reached out to a journalist friend and told them the truth about the crash, the paramedic who saved him, and how that night changed his entire life. The story broke 3 days later under the headline, "The Real Story Behind the Gala Kiss, the Woman Who Saved a Billionaire's Life." The same internet that mocked Naomi now flooded her page with apologies. But Naomi didn't celebrate, because now she understood what Ethan's kiss had truly meant. Not pity, not publicity, but guilt. And guilt wasn't love. Still, her blog became a movement. Invitations came from universities, podcasts, even global forums. For the first time since her accident, Naomi felt purpose again. Not from being saved, but from saving others through her truth. Meanwhile, Ethan's investors turned cold. They called him unstable, reckless, and unfit to lead. He walked away willingly, selling his shares to start something new. The Carter Initiative, a fund to help injured first responders rebuild their lives. When Naomi heard, she was speechless. She didn't know whether to be grateful or furious. But just as peace began to return, a single comment appeared under her latest post. "You should have stayed invisible. You don't know who you're dealing with." Fear prickled down her spine. Not because of the threat, but because deep down, she knew exactly which powerful faces might be behind it. Within a week, her speaking engagements were canceled, Her blog was flagged, and sponsors backed out without explanation. Someone wanted her silenced, and in that silence, Ethan returned. He reached out quietly. "You were right about everything. Can we talk?" They met in a quiet cafe, and Ethan showed her something that changed everything. Internal emails, proof that the same foundation that hosted the gala had laundered millions through fake charities. As Ethan scrolled through the documents, Naomi's stomach turned. Her name appeared over and over. The Naomi Carter Fund. Millions had been funneled through it. None of it had reached the hospitals. They hadn't just stolen money, they'd stolen her story. From that moment, Naomi's fury found direction. Some nights, the silence between them said more than words. The hum of computers, the soft shuffle of papers, the occasional brush of hands as they worked. It was a rhythm they didn't plan, but somehow needed. Neither called it love. Not yet. But in those quiet hours, something steady was forming. Something deeper than gratitude. By the time the gala night arrived, they weren't taking chances. Every news outlet already had the documents. Every whistleblower was verified. Even if they cut the lights or shut down the feed, the truth would already be out. Naomi entered through the same doors that once humiliated her. This time she didn't hide. She owned the room. The lights dimmed. The giant screen behind her came to life, revealing the truth. Bank records, fake accounts, stolen millions. Charity shouldn't be a performance. Justice shouldn't be optional. Naomi Carter. The room erupted. Reporters shouted, executives panicked, and Naomi sat still, calm and composed. For the first time, she felt powerful without apology. When the dust settled, her story went global. The foundation collapsed. Arrests followed. Later, during a quiet evening on a rooftop overlooking the city, Ethan looked at her with a faint smile. "You turned their cruelty into something beautiful." Naomi's gaze softened. "No, we did." He crouched beside her, eyes level. "This time, no cameras," he said quietly. "Just the truth. I love you." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Then love me honestly. No saviors, just partners." He nodded. "Always." In a world that judged her by her chair, Naomi stood taller than them all, because true power doesn't stand. It endures. They laughed at her, pitied her, and used her story for profit. But she turned every wound into wisdom, every insult into inspiration. Naomi Carter didn't just rise, she rebuilt the very system that broke her. And maybe that's what true power looks like. Not revenge, but redemption. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't rage. It's rebuilding yourself so powerfully that the world has no choice but to remember your name. If this story moved you or reminded you that resilience always pays off, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. Every comment helps us share more stories that prove one truth, that strength, love, and justice always find their way home.